I never imagined life would feel so unfamiliar inside the same four walls I'd grown up in. After my father's passing, our house became quieter, not in the peaceful way, but in the kind that echoes with everything left unsaid. My mother rarely spoke unless necessary. She buried herself in routines, and I followed her lead. We weren't grieving together. We were grieving in silence. Then came Imran, my stepdad, the man my mother quietly married one spring afternoon without a wedding or celebration, just a signature on paper and a new presence in our lives. When he first walked into our home, he didn't bring flowers or gifts. He brought a bag, a gentle smile, and something I didn't know how to handle, patience. I stayed out of his way. I thought it was best for everyone. We ate dinner at the same table, but there was a distance that made even the sound of cutlery feel loud. He tried. I'll give him that. He'd offer tea, ask about my day, compliment my photography, even though I never showed him my work. I responded with nods and short replies, the kind you use when you don't want to open any doors. But Imran didn't push. He existed around us, quietly, folding laundry when no one asked, fixing creaky doors, and cooking on weekends like it was his way of saying, I'm here if you let me be. Still, I didn't trust it. I had learned that people leave, either physically or emotionally. I wasn't about to make room in my heart for another temporary person. One evening, I passed by the living room. The lights were off except for the glow of a table lamp. Imran sat alone, hands clasped together, whispering. I only caught a few words. Ya Allah, make it easy for us. Let Sanaa feel safe again. He didn't see me standing there. I walked away quickly, unsure of what I was feeling. It wasn't anger. It wasn't affection either. Just a small crack in the wall I had built. Days passed. That moment stayed with me, like a quiet echo. I started noticing things I'd ignored. The way he waited for everyone to be served before eating. How he turned off lights in rooms we forgot. The way he listened, not just to words, but to silence. One rainy evening, I returned home soaked. The power was out, and I struggled with the door lock. Imran opened it from the inside, holding a towel and a small lantern. He didn't say anything, just handed me the towel and returned to the living room. I stood there, towel in hand, wondering why something so ordinary felt like the kindest thing anyone had done for me in a long time. It was then I realized this man wasn't trying to replace my father. He was simply trying to be present, and somehow, without forcing it, he'd made his place in a home that didn't feel like home anymore. I wasn't ready to call him anything yet, but for the first time, I didn't mind him being there. A few weeks after the rain-soaked evening, an email popped into my inbox, an internship opening at a creative agency I had followed for years. My heart raced. I wanted it, badly, but the confidence to apply wasn't there. I stared at the screen for hours, writing and deleting lines, convincing myself I wasn't good enough. No one in this house had ever told me I could chase dreams. So I never did. That night, during dinner, I casually mentioned the internship, not because I wanted support, just to say it out loud, as if that would make it real. Imran looked up, genuinely interested. What kind of internship? He asked. I gave a vague answer. It's in content creation. Photography, just a small thing. He nodded and didn't say much else. I assumed that was the end of it. 2 days later, I came home to find my laptop open and a PDF on the screen. My CV, polished, rewritten, better than anything I had done myself. A note in the corner said, asterisk, just a suggestion. Feel free to ignore. Asterisk, I knew it was him. I didn't say thank you, but that night I submitted the application. A week later, I got the call. I was in. The internship was demanding long hours, fast-paced projects, constant feedback. But it also introduced me to Ollie. We met in the editing room. At first, it was just small talk about camera angles and coffee preferences. But over time, it became deeper. He noticed things others didn't, how I edited with emotion, not just technique, how I told stories through frames. He listened like it mattered. Imran would wait up when I got home late, not with judgment, just with a glass of water, and, how was your day? Slowly, the house began to shift. My mother, lighter in her steps. Imran, humming while making breakfast. And me, texting someone who made me smile between projects. Ollie wasn't perfect, but he was consistent. He respected my boundaries. Never rushed my answers. He once told me, love is not about proving, it's about being. Those words stayed with me. One evening, I mentioned him to Imran. Carefully, unsure of what kind of reaction to expect. He didn't flinch, just listened. How does he treat you? He asked. I said, with patience. Imran smiled, then said something I didn't expect. That's the most important thing. Someone who waits without keeping score. That moment caught me off guard, not because of the advice, but because I realized I wanted his opinion. I wanted him to approve. For the first time, I looked at him and didn't see an outsider. I saw someone who had quietly built a bridge between us, plank by plank, without asking for anything in return. Ollie and I kept growing. So did the bond between me and the man I once refused to acknowledge. Without trying, Imran had become the quiet voice in my story, the one who reminded me I was worthy of both opportunity and love. Ollie started pulling away, not with words, but with silence. Delayed replies, canceled plans. I tried to stay calm, telling myself it was just work stress, but my gut said otherwise. One evening, he ignored a message I knew he'd read. Something shifted in me. Old fears returned, the kind that whispered I was never enough for anyone to stay. I didn't ask questions. I simply stopped reaching out. Work kept me busy, but my mind wasn't there. Every smile felt forced. Every compliment sounded distant. I buried myself in tasks, pretending none of it mattered. At home, I went back to my quiet shell. Even Imran's presence started to feel like background noise again. But he didn't change. He still asked how my day went, still left small sticky notes with kind words on the fridge. Then my mother fell ill. At first, we thought it was a cold. But days passed, and she didn't get better. The doctors ran tests. Imran took her to every appointment, kept track of her medication, and updated me like clockwork. I offered to help, but he never asked me to. He just handled everything calm and consistent. I remember walking into the kitchen at 2 a.m. one night. He was there, sitting in silence, hands clasped, watching over her as she slept. No one asked him to stay up. No one even noticed. But he did. It forced me to look at things differently. I started thinking less about Ollie and more about everything I hadn't seen. How many nights had Imran stood like this, holding everything together while I focused on my own hurt? A week later, while cleaning, I found an envelope tucked inside an old drawer in the living room cabinet. My name was written on it in handwriting I didn't recognize. Inside was a letter. Imran had written it nearly a year ago. He'd never given it to me. It was simple, honest. He talked about meeting me for the first time, how he didn't expect me to accept him, how he didn't want to replace anyone. I just want you to know that I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere, even if you never call me anything more than Imran. I sat there reading that letter 3 times. It wasn't poetic. It wasn't dramatic, but it was real. It was the kind of love that doesn't show up in grand gestures. It shows up when you're not looking. Later that week, Ollie called, said he needed space. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I just said, take care. Because somewhere in the middle of being let down again, I realized I wasn't broken. I was just finally seeing the difference between someone who says they care and someone who shows it every single day. And for the first time, the ache inside didn't feel like emptiness. It felt like clarity. I didn't expect Ollie to come back, but he did. A few weeks after that last call, he reached out, not with apologies, but with honesty. He said he'd been afraid of commitment, of not being enough, of things moving too fast. But he also said he missed me, missed the way I made ordinary things feel meaningful. I listened, this time without anger, because I wasn't waiting for someone to save me anymore. We met, talked like old friends, not people trying to fix something broken. And in that conversation, something became clear. I didn't need perfection. I needed sincerity. We agreed to start again, not from where we left off, but from who we had become in the time apart. Back home, my mother was recovering well. Her energy was slowly returning. Imran, as always, was steady, present. One evening, while helping me fix a broken shelf, he said, "You look lighter these days." I smiled, not because of Ollie, but because I finally understood the kind of love I had been surrounded by all along. I told him about the letter, how I'd found it. He looked surprised, maybe a little embarrassed. I thanked him, not just for the letter, but for every moment he chose to stay when it would have been easier to walk away. He didn't say much, just nodded. That's who he was. A few weeks later, Ollie came over to meet my family properly. I was nervous, not because of him, but because I wanted Imran to meet the man I was choosing. Not for approval, but out of respect. The evening went better than I imagined. Ollie listened more than he spoke. Imran didn't lecture or interrogate. He just observed, quietly, offering a few thoughtful words that said more than 1,000 questions ever could. After dinner, while walking me to my room, Imran said, "He's a good man. But remember, even good men make mistakes. What matters is how they come back from them." It wasn't approval. It was wisdom. And I cherished it. Months passed. Our home changed, not dramatically, but meaningfully. Laughter returned. Shared meals became the norm. And for the first time, I started calling Imran something more than just his name. Not Dad, but Abu, softly, once. And in that moment, I saw his eyes fill with something I can only describe as peace. Ollie and I got engaged in a quiet ceremony. No drama, no big announcements, just a promise. I looked around that day and saw love in every direction, not just the romantic kind, but the kind that shows up without being asked, the kind that listens more than it speaks, the kind that takes years to grow, but lasts a lifetime. And that's when I knew. A true love story isn't always about who sweeps you off your feet. Sometimes it's about who stays beside you, quietly building a home from everything you thought was broken